What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Today, I'm going to be bringing you something that you've requested. I put up a poll and I asked, do you want to see more BECMI content? Do you want to see more solo content? Do you want to see other games? What do you want me to do this week? And overwhelmingly, it was the top two. It was BECMI and solo content. So I decided to try to please the most folks this week. I am going to do a BECMI run through the ruins of the Undercity. I've talked about this a little bit on the channel, and I really like this product by Kabuki Kaiser. So with this, you can run solo adventures in essentially any TSR era D&D or clone thereof. So today we're going to take Beck from my Building with BECMI series and a couple of his buddies, the three wise men I'm calling them, to go down into the ruins of the Undercity and go find some trouble. So, without further ado, let's get over the table. If you are enjoying the channel and want to see more content like you see today, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. As of late, my videos are still receiving numerous likes, and for that I thank you. Unfortunately, the views have dipped a little bit, so I would love to see this video get some views and share it with as many folks as you think would enjoy it. If you want to get together with some of the best gamers in the business, go on over to the Books, Bricks, and Boards Discord server, link in the description. Methodology. What I'm using. Number one, I will be using the Rules Cyclopedia. For this playthrough, I'm going to use my printed copy that I've got in a binder because it's easier for me when I'm running everything and characters to have a lay flat option. You can get this through DriveThruRPG very inexpensively. Number two, Ruins of the Undercity. This Kabuki Kaiser product gives you full rules for solo crawling through a randomly generated dungeon, and it includes rules for town encounters and campaign play. This is a great product you can pick up again through DriveThruRPG. Creation method. For these characters, I used 3d6 down the line times 3 and picked the best of the 3. If a character's prerequisite was not met, I'd bump that to the minimum. I gave each character 300,000 XP plus any prime requisite benefit that they qualified for. I used the equipment rules from the Ruins of the Undercity for creating higher than first level characters, with a little bit of a twist. Per those rules, each character gets 250 gold pieces per level, plus one random magical item per level above the first. The first magical item is going to be either a +1 weapon or armor of the character's choice. I did allow characters to swap. If they rolled something that would have worked better for one of their companions, then I allowed them to give that up to their companions. Since all of my characters are adherents to religious organizations, I only kept with them a minimal amount of gold, and the rest is back at their temple or church. An additional twist, since these are higher level characters that have traveled to the necropolis to go partake in the ruins of the Undercity, I did not make them shop for all of their basic goods at the necropolis shops. I said they already had those. Number 4. Within the Ruins of the Undercity, there is a procedural sheet that will set your marching order and make note of what type of activities you will always be doing. That will keep you honest as you're going through the necropolis and the Undercity so that you know if you had any detection skills up or not. Number 5. I will be using some graph paper to keep track of my travels throughout the Undercity. As I go through, I will try to create a simple but effective map of where I've been. Number 6. Dwarven Forge. I will be using Dwarven Forge terrain for combat encounters, trying to keep it as close as I can to the actual dimensions given in the book, but anybody that's used Dwarven Forge knows it's not going to be perfect. For the purposes of this game, and usually when I use Dwarven Forge in any TSR era D&D, I use a 10-foot hex rather than a 5-foot hex, as that was traditional in that time. Number 7. Minis, standees, and flats. I will be using a variety of minis, standees, and flats. Arknight flats are my favorite flats. For minis, I've got a very good variety. The characters on the left in the front of the screen here are my clerics, or Eggery, Brother Eggery rather, and Beck in the center, and then Sock in the right-hand side. You will notice the character of Sock is a lizard, but I'm playing it as a mystic. So my thought was, this lizard creature was probably found, his egg was found by monks out in the western area of the known world, and they adopted it and raised it, so he has been raised as a traditional monk and mystic in that sense. So mechanically, he's a mystic. The minis themselves, Sock came from the Bard's Song Kickstarter pledge. Beck and Eggery came from the cheaper $2.50 Reaper Minis line, and I think they look great for $2.50. And now to introduce the three wise men. First up is Beck. You will note that I used the same attribute numbers as I did from my Building with BECMI series Beck. I have, of course, made him the same experience total as the other characters and randomly rolled for his equipment, so some of the equipment is different than what was in that series. Now, it is important to note, whenever you were rolling for the random magical items on the Ruins of Undercity, you just roll a truly random magical item. So you might get some potions, you might get some wands, or you might get really lucky and get a +3 sword, which Beck did. And as luck would have it, the cleric got a +2 sword, a short sword this time. So he has a backup weapon that is on his belt. Beck did become a paladin, as I mentioned in the Building with BECMI series, though his wisdom score was not high enough to cast spells. But that's okay, because he still gets the ability to detect evil once per round, which can be used to be able to spot enemies before they arise if they are evil, so it'll make it harder for them to surprise Beck and his group. And he can turn undead as a cleric of a third of his level, so level 3 in this case. I am using the weapon mastery rules, and as you can see, I have the different to hit roll matrix tables filled out for both his primary and secondary enemies with each weapon. Through the weapon mastery rules, as you rise up, you will be more adequately prepared to deal with certain types of enemies than others based upon the weapon you're using. As for Beck, he uses short swords and long swords, and he is a master of the long sword and an expert in the short sword. As such, he gets his best abilities against enemies holding handheld weapons. Others, he's still very prepared to fight, but not quite as well. Against hand weapon wielding enemies, so think humanoids, he will also get a benefit to his AC, an additional -2 for the first 2 opponents. As a special ability with his longsword or his short sword, because of his mastery, he can deflect 2 attacks, melee or thrown weapons, each round, in addition to his normal attacks. What this requires is a save versus death, and if successful, the attack is just swept aside. He can also disarm enemies, causing them to have to make a saving throw. Probably won't be using that one as much. As a high-level fighter, he will have the option to smash, parry, disarm, and multiple attacks. His AC is a -2 because he is wearing some plate mail armor, magical plate mail at that, +1, and he has a +3 shield that he randomly rolled. So, -2 AC, 53 hit points, that pretty much covers the front of his sheet. On the back, we will see he is going to be at a 90 movement, so 30 feet per round. And he has items in his backpack, a potion of polymorph self. Not sure where that will come in handy yet, but possibly. He has a clear crystal ball with clear audience. Don't know if I pronounced that right. And he can't use it, so it won't much matter. And a potion of control undead. He also has 50 foot of rope and a grappling hook, his plate mail, his shield, and his short sword on his belt. He carries 200 gold with him. Everything else is back at the church. You may notice he does not have any food or other supplies. That is because this is going to be a day trip. They are not going to be spending the night in the Undercity, hopefully. He also does not have a torch. Well, we've got that taken care of with the next character. And here we have Brother Eggery. He is a 10th level cleric, because clerics, in my opinion, are undercosted on their experience tables. I feel like, for my money, a BECMI cleric is the best option for your experience point buck. So, he is 10th level, he can cast up to 5th level spells, he does have some magical, he has a magical shield, and he has some plate mail armor. He also has a dexterity bonus because he has a 14 in dexterity. He can turn undead, and he's quite adept at that. He is a Grand Master with his +1 Warhammer. As such, the Warhammer is a very defensive weapon, and whenever he is up against monsters or missile-wielding enemies, he gets a -5 bonus to his AC for the first 4 opponents each round. I didn't really go over it with Beck, but the weapon mastery rules also increase the damage done. For example, Beck's longsword against his primary target is going to do 2d8 plus 8 damage for each attack. Well, Brother Eggery's Warhammer will do 1d8 plus 8 damage for his primary enemies when he attacks them. Eggery only has 34 hit points as a level 10. That's a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. In his possession, he has a potion of plant control. Don't know what we're going to do with that, but maybe. Treasure map, normal treasure. A potion of giant strength. A wand of elements that he can't use. He has a holy symbol with continual light cast upon it. So on his holy symbol, there is a permanent spell of continual light. He wears the holy symbol around his neck, so they always have light in their group as long as Eggery is with them, or if he falls, they grab that holy symbol. His 50-foot rope and a grappling hook, his plate mail, and his shield. He carries 250 gold pieces on him. The rest of his money has been given to the church. I did create a special tool for Eggery because I wanted to know what spells were available and what spells he had memorized. So I just printed off the spell list from the Rule Cyclopedia and put hash marks next to the ones that he has memorized for right now. It is important to note he's going to be casting Find Traps as long as he has those available so that we don't get caught off guard by some trapped rooms. At the bottom I also have his Turn Undead tables. Hopefully we run into lots of undead enemies because he is going to wreck house when that happens. And finally, the last of the 3 wise men is Sak Kurleen. And Sak is a mystic. He is lawful like the others. And in my mind, he is probably out here trying to learn about the other religions of the world and find ways to increase his knowledge. Sak, as a 9th level mystic, has some really nifty abilities. He can attack 3 times with an unarmed strike, and he can strike creatures that could only be hit with +2 or better weapons. He has a natural AC of 1, improved by 1 because of his dexterity to 0. His movement is 200 feet, so that ends up being 66 feet per round. He can attack 3 times with his unarmed attack at 2d8 damage per. He has the fighter options of smash, parry, and disarm. He is only surprised on a 1 because of his awareness. Once per day, he can heal himself for his level and hit points. He can speak with animals. He has resistance against spells or breath weapons, automatically taking half damage. If he makes the save, he only takes a quarter damage. He has basic knowledge of longbows, and he has a longbow +1. He is a master of unarmed combat, though he doesn't get the full benefits of that because his damage is determined by his class. He still has the ability to stun or KO, and he gets the bonus to hit, which is very important. On the back, we will see that he has a rope, 50 foot, grappling hook, a rod of weaponry, which is my favorite magical item in the Rule Cyclopedia. I was so happy when the cleric rolled it, only to see that the cleric couldn't actually use it. Rod of weaponry can become any +5 weapon, but it also only does d6 no matter what type of weapon it is. That said, the rod of weaponry can also break down into multiple weapons, and it is just a nifty utility piece, and the mystic can use it, so he's holding on to it. He has arrows, which were rolled across all three characters, and I just compiled them with him since he's got a longbow. He has a potion of poison, since he's a lawful mystic. I don't think he'll be using that. He has a potion of ethereality. That could come in handy. A potion of fire resist with his natural resistances. That could be incredibly effective. A ring of ear. I haven't looked that up. I need to look that up to see what that does. A potion of speed. An amulet, which is protection from clairaudience and crystal balls, which is ironic because I rolled a clairaudience crystal ball on a different character. Guess he's trying to stay safe from the dreaded fighter using his magical crystal ball, which he can't use. And those are the three wise men. You may notice that the tavern in the background and the backdrop in general is from my last week's video, and since that was on the Creature Crucible series, there is, yes, a werebear at the bar bellying up for a drink. That said, the story today is going to be very light. I'm not going to go into much detail, but I had to work through my head how this would work out in a campaign in a traditional fashion. So in my mind, I would fit the ruins of the Undercity into an area of the known world at the edge of Glantry, kind of claiming sovereignty from all the nations around it. And because it's full of nasty beasties and everything else, probably the other kingdoms in the area don't want to take the time or the resources to fight over it, so they're just going to let it be until it causes them major problems. I know that's a pretty narrow story, but it works for me, so that's what we're going with. Okay, so here's my basic kit for this run of Ruins of the Undercity. I got my minis, I've got my character sheets here, all three. I've got my procedural log, shows me what order everything is in. I am detecting traps, and for good measure, I'm detecting evil with my paladin. I do have this. This is one-page mythic. It's kind of a backup in case the rules are kind of unclear and I need to get a guidance that I would normally ask of a DM. And then I have my rule cyclopedia. Despite the fact that it has the BECMI basic cover on it, this is actually, in fact, a rule cyclopedia. You may wonder, why aren't you just using your BECMI binder that has all of the boxes in it? Well, the rule cyclopedia is much easier to navigate whenever you're already using all of the rules therein. Got my handy-dandy graph paper. And as you can see, I've had a couple of small adventures already. So we are going to get started. And as a just brief introduction to the concept of the ruins of the Undercity is a series of tombs and caverns underneath the city of Necropolis. And there are evil and magical beings, but there's also a lot of treasure underneath that, and it draws adventurers from all around to try to loot the treasures. And it's extremely dangerous, and the city above basically makes its economy off of farming the adventurers that go in to try to make their fortune. So there are all sorts of different entry points to the necropolis, the Undercity under the necropolis. So it's assumed that you can take a different one each time. You're just finding these old doorways and crypts to go into different parts of the vast Undercity. And so in doing so, you make a random roll for your starting position. So I'm going to roll a d6. I got a 4. So my starting room is going to look like this. And I'm going to come in from this way. Looks like I've got hallways, and I've got a door over here. So I'm going to draw that out, and we will get started. There's my very crude drawing of the entry point for the dungeon for now. It should be noted that when you initially start a delve in the Undercity, it is noted that the entry area is always empty. You don't have to worry about running into a monster until you go through a hallway or open a door. I do need to, however, mark off one of my fine traps as Brother Eggery has that up. And so we were going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 90 feet, which is as far as I can go in one turn, which is like 10 minutes in basic D&D. Actually, I'm sorry, no, it's 1 minute. That's advanced D&D where it's 10 minutes. So that's a minute of time kind of searching and being cautious as we go, because our lowest move is 90, so that's how far the party moves. So I am to the door. I believe that detect traps lasts 2 turns, so I'm going to have to check that. Yeah, so find traps actually last 2 turns, so I've used one of those turns just getting to this point. My party is now right here. We are going to roll, and since I am at a door, I'm going to roll a door type. And I rolled off camera. Let's get it on camera here. There we go. 12. So it is a reinforced wooden door. And I roll to see if it's locked. On a 1 to 9, it is locked. It is not locked. So I am going to open the door, and I'm going to roll a d20 to see what's beyond the door. I got a 9. There is a room beyond the door. So there is a room and corridor table. Rooms are the same as quarters, except for they're 10 foot smaller in both directions. So this room beyond the door is a 10 foot 10 square with no exits. So it's effectively a closet. Okay. So now I'm going to roll a D100 to see what the room features. 37. It's half flooded. Water rises up to waist level. The next D4 corridors and rooms are flooded as well. But since this is the end, I'm guessing that's not going to affect where I'm going to go back. So I can move more quickly here because I've already searched this area. So I'm not going to take the full time to map out and things. So I'm not going to take as much time off of my find traps. So I'm going to go down here to this hallway, and I'm going to see what is beyond the hallway. And for that, I'm going to roll on the main table, roll a d20, and I got a 13. And it is a chamber. Chambers are like rooms, but they're bigger. So I'm going to roll d20 on the chamber table. It is rectangular, 20 foot by 30 foot, with no exit. Okay. I also spent another 20 feet of movement, so my detect or find traps is going to be running out quickly. So we're going to go 30 feet this way, 20 feet this way. And again, it said no exits. There's not a door there either. So now I'm going to roll for features. 53. Frescoes of an ancient civilization. Well, that's interesting. I'm going to note that. I'm going to note this too. But then we'll roll. I didn't roll contents on the other, but there's only one square, so we're going to just roll contents here. 13. Monster and treasure. So as I go into the room, I don't know how they didn't notice me before, but apparently they didn't. There is a monster and treasure. So I need to go to page 36 to see what I run into. So there's this handy monster table here. And you basically take your average party level, you roll a d20, and you find out what level of the dungeon tables you're going to consult for what monster you meet. Well, my average level is 10 because you round up. The cleric's 10, the other two are 9. And so I'm going to roll on the 10 to 11 average level table. I got a 12. So I'm going to be on the level 8. And then they have a monster adjustment table. And so basically if you roll higher on this than your level, it's going to adjust the number appearing. So it's going to be 1 to 1. So whatever I roll is what I'm going to get. I did roll that their treasure was in there too. So I am going to get whatever treasure they generate. Then I'm rolling on the level 8 table. And I got a 70. A skeleton warrior. So just to give you an idea of what these look like. So there's all sorts of these different tables. Some of them are not going to line up perfectly. They're actually made using the Labyrinth Lord. That's what this AEC, that's the Labyrinth Lord Advanced Companion. If it says Fiend by it, that's a monster that was introduced in this book. So there's several unique monsters in this book. And there's one appearing, and it's in its lair. And I did roll that it had its treasure, so this is its lair. So this skeleton warrior in the room that's full of frescoes of an ancient civilization probably is a member of that civilization, maybe has some sort of an attachment to this area. So I am going to go back and check what the fiend, the skeleton warrior, is. Okay, so let's see if we can get it to focus. The skeleton warrior, a lich-like warrior clad in full chainmail and helmet. Move of 60, AC of 2, hit dice 9 plus 12. 1 attack for d10 damage, a two-handed sword. He saves as a 15th level fighter. Morale 12, of course. Magic resistance 90%. Woo! Good thing I'm not casting spells at him. Attack at plus 3 to hit. Creatures under 5 hit dice flee and tear, has undead immunities. Rumors about circlets allowing to control them are false. Okay. So I need to mark my page and go build a room to fight the skeleton warrior and find something to represent the skeleton warrior. Okay, so here I have found a Grave Knight figure from the Pathfinder 2nd edition figure flats. So it's a skeleton wearing armor with two-handed sword. That's about as good as I could hope for. So he is going to be standing here at the end of this hallway, observing the frescoes of his once glorious civilization that has fallen. To figure out where my characters are, I would take a look at my adventure log, and I would see that in an open hall, it would be Sack and Beck up front, and Egri in the back. So we've got Sack, Beck, Beck, and then Egri. And it looks like there's only room for one, so Sack is at the front because he is the least likely to be surprised. So let's roll that surprise. On a 1 in 6, Sack is surprised. He is not. I'm not even going to roll for surprise for the skeleton warrior. I think he's very comfortable where he's at. I think he just sits there and observes the lost civilization and kind of pines for those days. And so we're going to look at what the procedures for BECMI D&D would be. You might notice in the background I have this kind of strange looking DM screen. This is one I just created on the fly this morning. I grabbed some tables from my PDF of the Rule Cyclopedia, and I printed them off, and I laminated them. And there are actually 3 more different DM screens for different games behind these. I really love this option that I've got here, this DM screen, because I can have all my screens in one place, and I can create custom screens. You might be looking at it and going, wow, there's a lot of open space. That seems like a waste. But I can also keep notes like hit points for the big bad. And he's got 90-12, or 98 plus 12, rather. So here's 3d8. So that's 10. And 15 is 25. And 16 is 41 plus 12 is 53 hit points he's got. All right. And he is a 9 hit die plus 12 undead. So I would need to figure out kind of where he would fall as far as the turning undead tables. But I would guess he's probably somewhere in the haunt realm, and that would be a 9 plus to try to turn him. And all I could do is turn him. I couldn't destroy him. So I am actually going to just try to fight this guy. I'm going to roll initiative for the group. Got a 4. And for the skeleton, got a 2. So initiative in BECMI D&D is done by sides. Since I won, I would check morale first. There's not going to be a morale check here. Then I would do all my movement. So we will go ahead and move up, and move up. So that is actually 30. He can't get quite there. So we've got 2 guys on him. And we then go from movement to missile weapons. Not going to be using any missile weapons in this. Then magic. He's got 90% magic resistance, so spells against him are not going to be very effective. I do have striking that I could cast on a weapon to give it an extra d6 damage. And that might be worthwhile. He seems like a pretty high level enemy. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to cast striking on the fists of Sac Curleen. I'm not sure if that's technically considered a weapon, but he uses it like a weapon. It's registered as a deadly weapon with the folks in Specularum, so we're going to go with that. So that'll give an extra d6 on each hit, and since he's attacking 3 times, it makes sense to do that. So after magic, we're going to go to hand-to-hand combat, which is going to be the rest of what my characters are doing. And so we'll start with Beck. And we've got an AC of 2. So he's using his +3 sword. This is a weapon, hand-to-hand holding weapon character that he's fighting, so he gets his better rolls. So he needs to roll a 3 or better to hit. So this should not be hard to hit. He got a 10, so he hits. He's going to do 2d8 plus 8 damage. So 9 and 8 is 17. So after 1 attack, he's down to 36. Then we get to Sac Curleen. And he is going to attack. He gets 3 attacks with his unarmed attacks. So he got an 18. That's going to hit because he needs to get a 5. He hits on his second, and he hits on his third. Each attack is doing 2d8 damage plus a d6 because of the striking bonus from the cleric. So he does 11. Wow. Plus 18. 29. And another 9. So 38 damage. So he just shatters this guy. So this level 8 monster destroyed before he even gets to act. Now I get to see what kind of treasure he had, since it did say that he had his treasure with him. Okay, as it does not show a treasure type for skeletons in the BECMI monster section, and there is no treasure type listed for the skeleton warrior here on the in the Ruins of the Undercity book, I am just going to take my 4,800 XP and add it to what we have gained. And I'm going to say that the rest of anything that he had would not be valuable to the group, as it's been here aging for thousands of years potentially. So then we will move on to the next room. I am going to say that when we get out into the hallway, Eggery is going to have to cast another Find Traps, because surely the 2 turns are over by the time this combat is over. So let's go set that up. So I'm going to mark off another Find Traps. He had 4 to start with. He's got 2 left. And we're going to start our movement out here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's gone 40 feet. And they are at a corridor. Let's see what is beyond the corridor. So for that, I'm going to roll on the main table again, rolling a d20, a 4, more corridor, 30 more feet. That makes sense. Had to get past that other room there. So now we're at 70 feet moved. Let's roll again, see what's beyond this corridor. 5. More corridors. 30 feet. I guess I could be rolling for what's in these corridors. And which way they go. But I think it makes more sense for it to go straight here. So I am skipping some steps, but you can do this. It kind of does mention that there's a paragraph that's lifted straight from the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide that says that, you know, if the shape doesn't work for your piece of paper or what you had planned, just do it your own way. But I'll go ahead and roll. And at this corridor, I will roll to see kind of what we have for features. 31. Dank and moldy. Yep, not much going on there. And we'll roll a d20 for structures. Corridor structure, it turns left at 90 degrees. Well, it had to go this far anyways in order to pass that extra room that's all flooded out. So now I'm going to go back to the main table, and that was another 60 feet. I'm going to run out of Find Traps very soon, I think. So we're going to roll on the main table again. 16. Chamber. Okay. Let's roll and see what kind of chamber we got. Roll d20. 7. A square, 20 foot by 20 foot, with 1 exit. Okay. So Let's roll to see where the exit's at. 20. The same wall. So the exit is right there. Let's roll to see what features it has. 60. Frescoes of an ancient civilization. Okay. Let's see what contents it has. 12. Monster only. So I need to roll a wandering monster. And again, I'll be here on page 36 and just roll based on my party level of 10 and see what I get. An 8. So I'm going to be a level 7 monster I'm rolling on. So I roll a D100. 96. A Spectre. Ooh, that should be interesting. Let's find out what we got. Another nice thing about having the printed binder copy of the Rule Cyclopedia is I can just pull out the sheet that has the Spectre stats. Much easier to track everything. Spectres have 6 hit dice. Five and 6, 11 hit points. I do need to see if there were potentially more than one of them, because it says D4 here. Let me see on the table that I used to generate this. It says only 1 in this case, unless it's in its lair, which I did not roll, it's in its lair. So there's only 1 according to the ruins of the Undercity. So it's only got 11 hit points. That's good. AC 2 can only be hit by magical weapons, which luckily everybody here is using a magical weapon or equivalent thereof. The bad thing is the Spectre has double energy drain. So if it hits one of my characters, they will be drained 2 levels. So this is probably the most important initiative roll of this game, I would imagine. And I got a 2. Not great. I guess I need to roll to see if I'm surprised too. So he's only surprised on a 1. Not surprised. Okay. Now initiative for him, 5. So the Spectre is going to go first. And as you can see, there's a door here that's leading into whatever room's here. I'm coming down this hallway into this small room. So the Spectre sees me at the same time I see it, and it comes in to attack. Now, since it's got me caught in this hallway, it's going to make it very difficult to be effective as a group. So I really needed to win that initiative. Now, I do have my to hit rolls for monsters on my screen here, which you probably can't see, but they need to roll. There's 6 plus, so they need to roll a 13 to hit AC 0. So if they roll a 13 or better, the monk is down 2 levels. And he got a 15. Yikes. So 7 points of damage plus 2 levels of energy drain. So the monk drops to 7th level. I don't know what we rolled for his hit points at those levels, so we're just going to roll it. 3-3. So he lost another 6 hit points via energy drain. So we're going to say his max hit points now are 47. And 2 more for his 2 con bonuses, so 45. And that will change his to hits. That will change everything. So we're going to have to collect ourselves here. I think what we are going to need to do is see if we can turn this thing. It's a Spectre. So Spectre for a level 10 cleric is an auto turn. Okay. So when it rolls to my turn, I can auto turn the Spectre with the cleric just by force of will. In BECMI, they don't even have to present a holy symbol. They just say, I turn this undead. So that is what I'm going to do to get this Spectre to turn back into here. Now I'm not going to escape. I'm going to go kill this thing so that it doesn't get any other adventurers after we leave. We are lawful after all. But this way, my other characters can move in. But move is before magic, so they are not going to be able to move this turn. They'll have to move next turn. We'll roll initiative again. Not that it really matters. So 2 for us, 3 for them, but they're just going to try to stay away until they are attacked. So it's still turned. So we're going to go to here with the monk. He is going to kind of lick his wounds and collect himself. And Beck is going to come in, as is Sir Eggery. And we are going to go ahead and attack with Beck first. It is an AC of 2. He needs a 3 or better to hit. So he hits. He is using a magical weapon, his +3 sword. And so he's going to kill it. Yes. Okay. So Beck strikes the vile Spectre and just shatters its essence, and it is completely destroyed in one swipe, but not until after it had drained the very life force of the monk Sack. After some refreshing as to how energy drains work and what it would take to restore them, 7th level spell to restore lost levels via energy drain. So even the very potent cleric Eggery, level 10 cleric, who can raise the very dead, he cannot cure the lost energy levels for Sack Kirleen. So Sack is actually going to go back to town and collect themselves. And we're going to trudge on at least a little bit further with Eggery and Beck. Now, because I lost a character, my average party level goes down because it's based on 3 characters. You divide everything by 3. So my average party level is now 6. So the encounters should actually end up being a little bit easier going forward. So I've got a door, and so I've dispatched the evil Spectre. Sack has gone back to town, and there is a door. Don't know what's beyond it. Let's find out what kind of door it is first. It is a 15, so it is going to be a reinforced wooden door. On a 1 to 9, it is locked. It is locked. So it is a -1 to force open. So we're not using the skill rules, the general skills. We're just going to use ability checks, attribute checks. So it is going to be against Beck's strength to see if he can bust it open. He's a 14. So I'm going to roll 3d6. And I have to roll his strength or less. But this says it's a -1 to force open. So I've got to roll a 13 or less. Okay, so I did. So I bust open the door and I roll to see what is beyond the door. And the door is trapped. But I said I had my find traps skill up, or spell up rather, from Eggery, which I think I actually needed to, after the fight and the contemplation, I needed to erase another one of those. But I had written it on my sheet, so that is a known factor that they do that as long as they've got it. So I know that it's trapped because it is glowing. So I am not going to go any further. I'm going to go back down the way that I came, and we're going to check at the end of this corridor. We're going to roll for the type of corridor, standard masonry and rubble. We're going to roll for its features, 69. It's got a cracked floor, and let's see, we'll roll for its structure. Continue straight. Check main table again in 60 feet. Okay, we continue down the corridor and another 60 feet. We roll to see the main table. 1, a corridor, 30 foot long. Okay, so roll for corridor type. 2, standard masonry and rubble again. 34 for the features, dank and moldy. And then roll for the structure. That was another 30 feet. 9. Side passage opens to the right at 90 degrees. I've been going right by this, not by the orientation of the characters. So this is just a side passage, which means this corridor still goes on. I'm going to roll on the main to see what this side passage has in it. 12 has a door. What kind of a door? 16, it's copper and rusted. On a 1 to 12, it is locked. It is not locked. So we're going to go through it. Space beyond the door. 5, a corridor. Really? 50% parallel passage, stretching 30 feet in both directions, 50% straight ahead. So we'll say 50%, 63, so nope, it's going to be the second. So 30 foot straight ahead. Okay. And go back to the main table, see what's there. A door. I didn't roll for corridor features there because I'm getting tired of corridors. And you have your option to, use these tables as you wish. I'm going to roll for the door. A 4, a wooden, moldy, and rotten door. It's locked on a 1 to 6. It's not locked. Okay. So, space beyond the door. 17, a chamber. Those are the bigger style of room. So let's roll to see what kind of chamber we got. A 5, a 20 foot by 20 foot with 1 exit. So we'll go like that. And let's roll to see where the exit is. 4, the opposite wall. So this is kind of a stopping point between passages maybe. And let's roll for some features. 28, it's damp and moldy. And let's see what kind of contents we have. 17, a trap. Okay, but again, I have my find traps up. And so I know that this is trapped. So we're not going to go in there. We're going to go back. So this is trapped. This is trapped. I'm going to erase my last find traps, as we've been walking quite a bit. We're going to see what's beyond this corridor here. And I'm not going to roll corridor features. I'm just going to roll main to see what's there. 6, a corridor. Of course it is. All right. Let's see. I'm not even going to roll. Yeah, I'll roll for features. Let's see. Features of the corridor. 04. Dank and moldy, of course. They all are. And let's roll for the structure. 20. The corridor is trapped. Okay, there's traps all over the place, but I've still got my find traps up, my last one, so I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go back this way, and that's a long way to go. I'm going to say we're out of find traps now, so if I run into another trap, I'm just going to have to deal with it. So let's go ahead and roll for this corridor here. Corridor features 89. A moaning sound. Ooh. So I hear a moaning sound. That's not good. And structure 7. Side passage to the left opens up at 90 degrees. And it continues straight 30 feet after that. Okay, let's see what this side passage is. 18. It's a dead end. Well, that's interesting. They might be obstructed by rubble. Close with a grate. Let's see what it is. 44. So it's obstructed by rubble. So this has just kind of collapsed, which we could dig that out, but I think we're going to keep on going. So we'll keep going, and we'll roll another corridor feature. 98. A special corridor. Well, about time we got a special corridor with all the corridors we've been finding. A 1, a half-flooded, again with the flooded, half-flooded corridor. Water rises up to the waist level. Next, D4 rooms, corridors, and chambers are half-flooded as well. So this is flooded. This is flooded. And let's roll for the structure. 6. Continue straight. Check main table again in 60 feet. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So we got water here. It's all flooded. We're up to our waist in water as we trudge through this dungeon. We've lost one of our compatriots already. And we're going to check the main table. And don't be a quarter. 12. It's a door. All right. It's a wooden reinforced door. Is it locked? It is not locked. So let's put the door here. Now we know that it's going to be flooded. The next D4 are flooded. So let's see how many. If I can pick up my D4. The next 4 are flooded. So this is going to be flooded, whatever it is. Let's roll on the main table. 12. We already did a door. Wait a minute. 12. Space beyond the door. A room. There we go. So we need to roll for a room, which is 10 foot by 10 foot shorter than a chamber. So let's roll for the room. A 2. So it's a 10 by 10 with no exits. Oh my goodness. And it's flooded. So again, another 10 by 10 room that's flooded out, no exits. So at this point, I know this room's trapped. This corridor is trapped, the door anyway. This is trapped. This is collapsed. And this is a dead end flooded, and this is a dead end flooded. So at this point, I am going to actually go back to town. We're going to wrap things up, and I'll talk a little bit about the system. All right, so that was a run through in the ruins of the Undercity. Now, a little bit about the system. This was based on some of the thought processes that Gary had in the original Dungeon Master's Guide with his dungeon geomorphs in there and the random rolling for what's beyond the next room. This one gets in a little bit more detail. This was designed with Labyrinth Lord in mind, but since Labyrinth Lord is a retro clone, it's very compatible with BECMI or BX or Old School Essentials or AD&D or AD&D Second Edition or Osric or Hyperborea, or even you could run Dungeon Crawl Classics through it or Castles and Crusades. Now, some of the great things about this is that it is always going to surprise you. Now, sometimes those surprises are not that exciting. As you saw, I got a lot of corridors, lots of dead ends. Since I didn't bring a thief with me, those traps were not something I wanted to deal with, and we didn't check out what those were. Also, this is old school gaming, so you may just roll a Spectre that sucks 2 levels out of your 300,000 XP Mystic and makes him a level 7. Ouch. Just a couple bad rolls and you can be in a pinch. Now, given once I got my turn, I was able to turn him without even rolling, and then I was able to slice him into oblivion with one stroke of my +3 longsword. But that doesn't change the fact that the Mystic is now 2 levels lower. One thing to remember, I started with 9th and 10th level characters, and so it made things seem a lot easier than they would be if you started with 1st level characters. While the monster encounters do scale to level, it can still be quite an endeavor to get through those early encounters with level 1 characters with no magical items, and that should just be something to note. So if you want to start with a higher level character, there's some suggestions on how to do that in here, and that's what I used to create mine. I think it ran really well with BECMI. There were lots of opportunities for me to run into all sorts of great BECMI beasts and monsters to deal with. I just got a couple of undead by the luck of the draw. Now, that said, this is based on the Undercity of the Necropolis, so undead are going to appear quite frequently in here. It would do you well to have a cleric in your group. Hint, hint. So, what do I think about this as a solo play option? This is something that I think would be good for folks that just like the mechanics of the game or want to test the mechanics of the game. If you wanted to play through a game that you can't get other people to take to the table and see how it plays on the table, this is a great method to do so. I'll probably run some Hyperborea through this at some point really soon. And I may even run some Dungeon Crawl Classics. But as far as the depth of story, you're going to need some extra there. I do have the 1-page Mythic GM Oracle that was at my side. It never felt necessary to engage it at that point whenever I was playing today. But, you could add some flavor with a GM Oracle. You could also just do your own thing and create some story behind what's going on. There is some in-town rule goodness in the book. You can actually gain titles of nobility and buy property and lots of cool things like that in the campaign for this. But as this is based upon old school D&D, there's a good chance you're not going to live long enough to enjoy any of that anyways. So enter at your own risk, we'll say. So what did you think of my play of BECMI Ruins of the Undercity? You can pick this up for a few bucks on DriveThruRPG, and if you want the printed copy, I think it might be like 10 bucks. But I think it's a good tool for any DM to have on their shelf. nice way to play some solo or co-op gaming to teach players or just to have a little bit of fun when you don't have a group to play with at the time. If you did enjoy the video and you want to see more videos like this, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Needs to get at least 1,000 views for me to want to do another one of these. They take a lot of work in editing and prep, and want to make sure that somebody's watching it if I'm going to do these. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. What'd you think of the video? What'd you think of the quest? And what did you think of Ruins of the Undercity? If you played it before, tell me what your experiences have been. Other than that, until next time, this has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Good gaming, and God bless.